essentially, we are going to talk about our journeys of spiritual life here at Biola. During this session, we'll share a little bit about our different journeys to Biola and what it's been like since. So if you have any questions throughout our time together, please make sure you put them in the chat. And our facilitator, Ashley, will pass them along to us, and we'll have a nice question answer time at the end. So we're going to get started and introduce ourselves a little bit before we dive in. I'll start. My name is Lauren, as you guys can probably see on your screen. I'm a graduating senior in 4 weeks. So crazy. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and I'm majoring in political science and minoring in Spanish. And a fun fact, my favorite fall thing, I talked with my coworkers here about it last time, are probably my Doc Marten boots. They're super fun. They're nice and grungy. They have such a good fall vibe. So that's probably my favorite thing. And I'm going to hand it off to David.
Yeah, my name's David. I grew up in San Francisco, and then I moved to Manteca, which is also in Northern California, but now I live right by Biola down here in Whittier. I'm a junior music major with a minor in social justice. My favorite fall thing is definitely the weather changing. I love cold weather. I love clouds especially. You don't see a lot of that down here in Southern California where I grew up. The cold weather was definitely my favorite part. Annie?
Okay, and then my name is Annie. I'm a senior Bible major. I'm from La Palma, California, which is just about 15 minutes south of Biola, so super close. And my favorite fall thing is for sure the color palettes. I love burnt oranges, brick red, dandelion yellows. Those colors are just my absolute favorite, and I make every PowerPoint slide that kind of color palette, So I love fall colors. It's just super fun. And it's a bummer that La Palma leaves don't really change colors. So I have to go to other places to experience that. But that's my favorite fall thing. And I'm just going to give you guys a little overview of our session today. So as Lauren had already mentioned, we're going to talk about a couple different ways that Biola engages in the spiritual life of the students and how we invest in that. So we'll talk a little bit about some Bible classes, some chapels, different community events. And then David is going to go ahead and share a little bit about chapels. So he's actually involved in the chapel band. So he'll talk about the heart behind chapels, but also what his experience has been like just being invested in a chapel band. So if you have any questions throughout this entire session or anything specific that you want us to elaborate on, let us know and we will answer that at the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing a little bit about my personal experience with spiritual life at Biola. So Lauren and I are both seniors, so we've been here. This is our 4th year. Lauren is actually graduating this semester. But in our past couple of years being at Biola, I'm sure, and we'll both share a lot of different things that Biola has provided for us to really grow in our walks with the Lord. So the 3 things that sort of stand out to me the most, one of them was this class that I took with Dr. Lundy, which Lauren is actually taking now, and it's called Jesus' Life and Ministry. And it's literally just about Jesus' life and ministry. And we walk through Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And his goal, I remember he shared the first day of class, was, I want to make Jesus a stranger to you. And I remember sitting there what does that mean? Should he be saying this as a Bible professor? But his whole idea was growing up in the church, if you grew up in the church, or just becoming so familiar with different gospel stories about who Jesus is. And sometimes we can just sort of feel oh yeah, I know who Jesus is, and he doesn't really feel new to us, or the gospel isn't fresh to us. And his whole goal was showing us different facets of who Jesus is and showing us different parts of his character that we had never seen before. And I remember just sitting in the back of that class, crying when he was talking about Jesus' holiness. And so just getting to have really new perspectives on who God is and who I am in relation to that. And so just feeling really spiritually renewed in some of my Bible classes. Another thing that comes to mind is this one conference session. So Biola every semester will do a big conference. And so for the fall semester, we do something called Tory Conference. And then the spring semester, we do a missions conference. And so for one of our Tory Conference sessions, they brought in someone, his name is Ken Shigematsu, and he talked about the importance of rest and Sabbath. And I feel especially with everything right now, like so many people prioritize this ability to go, go, go. And it's almost like glorified to be overly productive and to be a workaholic. And for someone like myself who really does enjoy working and really enjoys school, it's hard for me to want to rest. And when I do rest, it's like for maybe 5 minutes, and then I'll like go back into my next thing. But I remember that session, he did such a great job of just walking us through this discipline of Sabbath and this discipline of rest, and how we are called to imitate God in that sense of when he rested on the seventh day. And yeah, just feeling so convicted of, man, Lord, I'm not worshiping you in my work if I just constantly work, and I need to rest. And that's something that it's a gift that you give me. And so feeling really spiritually renewed in that too. And ever since that session, I will do Sabbath every single Sunday, where I don't do any work, no school work, and I just am with my family and with the Lord. And it's been so, so sweet. And I found that when I give my time up to the Lord, he really honors that. And so that was something else that was really good. And then the last thing that I wanted to touch on, Biola has these 24/7 prayer chapels on campus that are literally just the best. It's so, so great to just have this small space where I can go in and read my Bible or just pray. And freshman year especially, I would wake up early, take a nice walk from my dorm to the prayer chapel, and just sit there and spend time with the Lord. And I grew up in a pretty expressive church where, yeah, a little bit charismatic, but I found like those moments of silence with the Lord to be the most like intimate moments I'd ever had with him. And it's just a really small private space. And even just walking to class days and say I have 15 minutes in between the next thing that I have to go to, I just will pop into the prayer chapel and spend some time in there. And just the fact that Biola creates spaces for their students to engage with the Lord is so special to me. And yeah, I know that that's something that's meaningful to a lot of other students too. So that's just a little bit about my personal experience with the way that Biola pours into our spiritual life. And I know Lauren will go into a little bit more too.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Annie. I did want to bounce off you talking about the different the different chapels that we have on campus. Annie and I lived in a 1,200 square foot house last year we were 2 of 7 girls. So do the math for how many square feet each person gets. There are other students obviously who live on Biola's campus too. But the spiritual, like actual chapels and buildings themselves on Biola's campus are like honestly just little sacred places. We have one called like the Belly of the Whale, which is this like really secluded little underground one that feels like it's all golden. It's really pretty. There's one called Rose of Sharon, which is right by the library. There's one actually inside Alpha Dorm, which is an all-girls dorm. And so they're really, really special places around campus that you can stop and spend time with Jesus in the middle of a really busy day. And so I don't know, it's probably not something that you're used to having little chapels maybe around your house or anything like that, but coming to Biola's campus and realizing that there are sacred spaces for you and the Lord just to interact with each other is really special. So what I wanted to talk about is spiritual direction that we offer on Biola's campus. Spiritual direction essentially is kind of a mix of counseling and spiritual mentorship. So we have a grad school at Biola called Talbot School of Theology, and one of their programs is ISF, which stands for the Institute of Spiritual Formation. And so a lot of students going through the ISF grad program mentor undergraduate students in something they call spiritual direction. And so I did this during Biola for, I think, a semester or 2. And essentially what you do is you're matched up with someone who is a spiritual director, either one that's like finished their degree or one in training as well. And you talk about your walk with the Lord. And so you like talk about your personal life and what you're processing as you're reading the Bible and what you're processing in your relationships and how you can be spurred on to continue to surrender more parts of your walk in your life to Jesus. And so that's helped me a lot. You can meet with spiritual directors on campus, so it's not like you have to drive and go and find them, but they're in this section of campus called the Grove, which is actually where our admissions team works. So it's really close to where I do a lot of my work anyway. And then also when you meet with a spiritual director, it's counted for a chapel credit. And so we do ask that Biola students go to 20 chapels per semester while we're on campus. I think it's 14 per semester when we're doing virtual. But it's really great because if you're meeting with a spiritual director, that counts as like one of your chapel credits because it also takes time out of your life and you're talking about spiritual things too. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was involvement with local church. A question that we often get with new students coming to Biola is, does Biola have a church on campus? Like, what does that look like? Students are professing believers, and so is staff and faculty. Like, why would you need to go to another church? We have community. But something that we do really encourage at Biola is getting plugged in with your local church, because interacting with a body of believers outside of an institution of academics is completely different. And it's so much more like a big picture of the body of Christ. And so I've had a wonderful opportunity to be involved in a local church about 10 minutes away from Biola's campus for the past 3 years now, which is crazy. It's a small church, about 450 people go there, a lot of Biola professors, a lot of Biola students. There's families, there are old people. It's super intergenerational. And honestly, my time there plugging into that church has really taught me what it looks like to be a part of a body, that I go there and I'm not just there for a worship service and it feels like a nice theater performance, but I'm also there and I'm giving back to my body too. And we are walking closer with the Lord together. And I don't know, we're just kind of in accountability relationships like that too. So that's something that Biola really encourages. And we have tons of local churches in the Biola area. So you don't have to drive 40 minutes away to go to a church. But there are tons of churches that Biola professors and current Biola students already go to. It's so easy to get plugged into and get a ride to church. So I'm going to hand it off to David, and he's going to talk about different chapel opportunities.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be talking about specifically the chapels. Lauren mentioned we have a 20 chapel per semester requirement. And for a lot of students, that sounds like a lot coming on top of classes and extracurriculars and everything else going on, like attending chapels as well. But it's actually become one of my favorite parts about Biola is going to chapels. And a lot of that's because Annie mentioned that I'm involved in chapels. I'm a chapel band leader. So I'm involved behind the scenes. I'm involved on stage. That's been really great. But I'm just going to kind of talk about what all the chapels entail. So we have 8 chapels every single week for 16 weeks. So there are so many opportunities to get these chapels done. And what I really love about there being so many options is how different all the chapels are. We have chapels Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. There's like a little slot to 9:30 to 10:15 where most professors won't have classes during that time. So if you want to attend those chapels, you can go. Like a lot of classes are scheduled to start at 10:30, so you can always make that time. And they're a lot like almost like a church service where there's worship at the beginning, there's a message, and then sometimes there's like a song or two at the end. It's 45 minutes long. Tuesday and Thursday evenings we have prayer chapels, which are something I had never experienced before Biola. It's only a half hour long, and it's one of our campus pastors just praying over us, and it's like a guided prayer service. And we go through 5 movements of a prayer, ranging from supplication to thanksgiving to just all these different themes that kind of change week by week. And it's just so new to me, just spending 30 minutes just in guided and specific prayer. So that was something I really, really enjoyed, especially my freshman year. We have After Dark on Wednesday nights, which is really cool. It starts at just after 9 p.m., so it's really late. You're not going to have any classes during that time, and I feel like that's when we get some of our really, really great messages. Just talking about some really like important topics, but a lot of times even controversial topics. And that's why I've enjoyed so much coming to Biola, because we're coming here as young adults and as Christians going out into the world, we need to be able to answer a lot of the hard questions. And we're getting equipped in chapels like After Dark to answer a lot of those really difficult questions. My personal favorite chapel is Singspo, and a lot of that's because I'm involved in a band, but Singspo is on Sunday nights. So you for sure won't have any classes on Sunday nights, and it's about an hour long, and it's only worship. And so there's a good like 7 to 10 or 11 songs, and there's framing in between of just kind of guiding you through the entire experience of worship, which is so much more than just singing, and just these band members and band leaders just kind of guiding through what it means to truly worship the Lord in an entirely holistic view. So that's been something I've loved a lot. And being involved in a band, I've been able to see a lot of the heart behind chapels, being able to meet and be involved with campus pastors, some of our spiritual direction leaders, just kind of seeing how much thought they put into every chapel. They choose speakers for different chapels and how much research and thought they put into choosing a speaker. Annie talked about Tory and Missions Conference earlier, and they put so much into those conferences in picking speakers like Ken Shigematsu, but then also bringing in worship. We've had For All Seasons come, we've had House Fires come, we've had all these amazing bands come. I almost played with House Fires when they came, which was like such an almost cool experience. They needed a guitarist like last second, and then he ended up coming back, so it didn't matter. But it's just really, really so cool seeing um, that they have so much care for the students and really nurturing their spiritual life, that they bring in these amazing, amazing speakers every single year, even every single week at a lot of our chapels, and just helping our students make the most of their time while they get their Christian education. So now we are opening it up for any questions that you guys have chatted in, and it is not too late at all to chat in questions. So if there's anything you guys want to know about anything we've talked about, please feel free to still chat those in. Our first one, though, will go to Lauren. How would you say that you've seen your faith integration play out in your major?
Yeah, awesome. So just as a refresher, I'm a political science major. What's been really special about studying political science at Biola has been my professors who love Jesus and are passionate about political science from their own personal Christian convictions. So one of my professors, I'm taking a capstone class right now, and one of the projects that we've been working on as we meet virtually on Zoom is we read Philippians 4 every week, and we meditate on that and then pray over that before the start of class. And it's like the coolest way to ground learning about societies and other kind of big concepts in a way that humbles us from the beginning. And so that's been really cool. Just one being that my professors love Jesus and want to make sure that their students are also equipped with the same desire to love the Lord. But then also speaking kind of more personally for me, a lot of my political science reading is about old political philosophy, which is pretty nerdy, and I love that stuff. And what's been interesting is that as I've been reading these books, I feel like consistently my own spiritual growth has come so much from my political science classes, because it's talking about humans interacting with each other and a view of human nature and what the good life looks like and flourishing. So there's partly the things that we're actually reading in class that contribute to my own spiritual development, and then also how our professors guide our classes in a way that feels like they're Christ-centered, even though we're not, say, digging into Jesus's life and ministry practically like that.
Great. And then just like a quick fire question for all three of us. I'll go first. The question is, what small group or Bible study experience have you all had? And so for me, I was really involved my freshman year, especially with my floor. So in Res Life, twice a week, we would go out onto one of our parking structures up on the fifth floor at like midnight and have a worship night for like 30, 40 minutes. And it was just this really cool thing under the stars that I'm probably always going to remember. So that's definitely the first kind of small group spiritual experience I had on campus.
Yeah, I can go next. I think for me, I haven't been too involved in formal Bible studies, but so I'm actually part of the Tory Honors Program, and before every single session that we have of discussion, we start with 15 minutes of devotionals, and so every person will sort of rotate through and lead a small Bible study. And yeah, similar to what Lauren was talking about doing Philippians 4 right before class, it's so grounding to just start with some time in the Word before you go into discussing Plato or Shakespeare or Aristotle. And it's just so cool to sort of have that worldview lens of like this is the perspective I have, like going into this, and I'm a Christian reading these classical texts, and how does that affect the way that I interpret them? And so I think, yeah, just sort of bringing together Bible studies through academics and integrating those together has been super, super cool.
Yeah, okay. So I have been a part of some Bible studies that at the beginning of freshman year, after like your orientation, some of they used to be called SOS leaders. I think they're now called, like, I'm not exactly sure what the name is, but essentially the students that welcome you onto Biola's campus, they will lead some Bible studies for incoming freshmen. And so I was a part of one of those my freshman year, which was really cool. And then my sophomore year, or also at the end of my freshman year, and then at the end of my sophomore year, I led a small Bible study with my friends. And so we would meet in the caf every Friday morning and talk about Psalm 139 together. And so that was a really fun way to like be a part of a Bible study, and then the next year's to lead one too.
Great. Annie, are there any places to worship God daily in my personal time with the Lord on campus?
Yes. So Lauren and I had both mentioned earlier just different like prayer chapels around campus. And so those two that Lauren and I had mentioned. And then I actually, my freshman year, I used to really like just like playing my guitar and worshiping by myself, but I never wanted to do it on the dorm floor because those walls aren't like the most soundproof, and there's also like quiet hours and stuff like that. So what I would do if I weren't going to an actual prayer chapel, sorry, there's a mosquito in my room. I would just walk up to the top of the parking structure and just like sing it super loud, like at 6:30 a.m. and just like sing there. Or I'd go, there's like a little fireplace sort of like in the middle of campus, and I'd go there early in the mornings too, just like flip on the fireplace and play guitar. And so I really like to just like going on different spots on campus early in the morning, but I know that not everyone's an early riser. But honestly, like your dorm is also such a great place to like be able to spend those times with the Lord, especially if your roommate is like maybe not in the room a ton, or they're like fine with you, I don't know, like praying or singing, whatever, like spending your time with the Lord. Everyone's super understandable of that. And so, yeah, I feel like there's so many different places around campus that you can do that. I also really like just laying out on Metzger lawn. It's right in front of our library. It's a super spacious lawn. And I really like just reading my Bible there too. So I feel like there's always different places that people can go, and everyone sort of has their own little spot on campus that they like to be at. But yeah, you can definitely always find a place.
Great. And then I'll handle this next question. This one is asking, how do I join a chapel band? So for people who are interested, I'm a music major, but you don't have to be a music major to be involved in a chapel band. We always stress that. There are typically like 8 to 9 bands of anywhere from 2 to like my band has, at one point we had 9 people in our band, and it was just this really, really big thing. And so every year there are auditions in the spring in which you kind of connect with a band. We have like meetings for people who are interested in being in chapel bands, and you can just kind of, is a meet and greet, so you can meet each other. Say you have a small group, but you need a drummer, and you can meet somebody who's there alone and is a drummer that wants to be in a chapel band. So we have meet and greets for that, and there are auditions towards the end of spring every year. So it's not really likely to happen the first year you're at Biola, but then in the spring of your first year, you can audition to be in a band for your second year. And then this might be our last question, but for Lauren, are there mission trips through Biola, or are they typically done through local churches?
Yes. Okay, so there are multiple options for mission trips. Biola has something called SMU, which is the Student Missionary Union. It's led by students, and they do a bunch of short-term, like local mission trips, and then long-term global mission trips. So I've had friends that are my age lead 6-week mission trips with Biola students to Indonesia, to Siberia, to Spain, to Greece. There are tons of really cool ways to do mission work through Biola. So I've done a mission trip through SMU, the Biola missionary program, to San Francisco. And then you can also do mission trips with your local church. I've done a mission trip my freshman year to Mexico with my friend's church. And then my sophomore year, the church that I'm involved with went to Cambodia. And so I was there for like 2 weeks. So there are opportunities both for like being involved in mission work at Biola and then also off campus in your local church. So this is kind of, we're wrapping up kind of the end of the session. I just wanted to thank you guys all for coming and being a part of a really meaningful session, and pray us out. So if you guys would join me in prayer. Father, thank you so much for these students who decided to go to this session on spiritual life. That's really encouraging, and that just is such a revealer of their hearts for you and wanting to know how they're going to be spiritually fed and nourished here at Biola. That's so, I don't know, that's just like warming to my own heart as a student here, knowing that prospective students are looking for that on Biola's campus. Jesus, I just pray that you meet these students with your spirit today, that you remind them that in your presence there is fullness of joy, and that you give them wisdom and discretion as they are deciding what college they're wanting to go to in a really, really crazy year where we're online and trying to get on campus and tour and find out more information about college feels a little bit more exhausting. I pray you give them discernment, and I pray that you open and close doors to make it really clear where you are leading them this next year. Jesus, we love you, and thank you for your grace and your patience with us, Father. Amen. All right, you guys, thanks so much for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.